What's up, friends? Welcome in as always. Thank you guys so much for joining us. Normally, I do our little intro and say hello to you guys, but this time I'm going to just go ahead and pass the mic to that trainer over there who has a hard time guarding me. Go ahead, take it away, brother.
As per usual, no one can guard Mr. Hank Hargentine, but friends, I want you to get prepared and geared for this episode today, okay? Today, we're not bringing on a friend of a friend. Today, we're bringing on my brother. His name is none other than Mr. Devale Ellis, a.k.a. NFL, Mr. a.k.a. Make It Happen, big-time actor. We got him today. Thank you for joining us, D.
I appreciate y'all, man. Thanks for having me. This is a blessing.
Absolutely. We've been big fan. Well, I know he's known you for a long time, but I've been a big fan of you for a long time. So to have you here is an absolute privilege for us. And I have one question.
Yes.
On a personal note, before we get into any NBA talk, is it true you owe me $10,000 after the Super Bowl?
How I owe you $10,000? What are you talking about? What? You have to cut this fucking camera. You trying to get some bread. What did I miss?
10 beds? That's a good number, Hank.
Listen, I vaguely remember being on the phone with you at halftime and telling you that the Chiefs were about to come back, and you telling me you were wrong for that one. And then,
did we bet $10,000?
I don't know that part.
You got to think it, Hank.
Did we bet $10,000? Because I'm not gonna lie and say you didn't say that. You did say the Chiefs was coming back.
That part's a little foggy to me. Maybe.
Yeah. All right. I'm not gonna lie. You did say that, so I'll give you that. But that $10,000 though.
That's funny. That's funny.
Nah, son.
I love it. All right. Well, but anyway, thank you so much for doing this because we know how busy you are. So this is just awesome to have you here, and I know you're traveling and working nonstop. So seriously, thank you so much for doing this. And let's just talk about this right off the bat because this is one of the topics I know you mentioned to Jason you really wanted to get into. Giannis got eliminated from the playoffs along with the Milwaukee Bucks not too long ago. And the headline afterwards was less about their elimination and more about Giannis's post-game presser where he was asked about was this season a failure or was it not? And his answer pretty much took over the internet for a while.
Right.
Your thoughts on his comments about this season not being a failure?
If I'm being 100% honest, I think that his comments were a bit disingenuous, right? And there are a number of reasons why. Number one is when we talk about being a failure, everybody makes it seem, or they took the narrative, right? Like social media and other pundits took the narrative as if the reporter asked if he was a failure. The reporter never asked that. The reporter asked if this season was a failure, which means he's talking about the organization's attempt to win a championship this year. He didn't even ask if the Bucks themselves as an organization was a failure. He asked if this season was a failure, which I think is a very fair question, right? You are the number one seed. You have an MVP candidate. Not only are you the number one seed in the East, you're the number one seed in the entire NBA. If they'd have got to the finals, they would have had the home game. They would have had the home court advantage. Mm-hmm. Of course, he was out, and I'll give them that. They were out in the first round, right? He was out for the first 3 games. They were able to win one of those games. He's able to come back. Didn't play like himself, but he still played well. This is why I think people are being disingenuous. They had a double-digit lead in Game 4 and Game 5 in the fourth quarter and lost both games. That's a failure, bro, as the number one seed, especially since you didn't lose in 7 games to the 8th seed. You lost in 5 games. And to say, oh, well, there's no failures in sports, that's a fucking lie. That's a lie, bro. And to make the equation of every year Michael Jordan lost, was that a failure? That's not even a fair comparison. That's why I think it's disingenuous. Because no, that's not a failure, right? The first 7 years Michael Jordan played in the NBA, he was trying to learn how to win. But once he learned how to win, he kept winning as the best player in the NBA at that time. Here's another reason why it's disingenuous. Had LeBron James made that comment, you know what they would have did on social media? They would have destroyed him. The narrative would have been, this is why he's not my GOAT. He accepts losing too well. So I just think the whole thing was disingenuous. But Giannis is not a failure, and the Bucks organization is not a failure. Like, anyone who's trying to say that that's what the question was about is capping, because it's not true.
But this season was a fucking failure.
Absolutely. 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 I don't think you can be the number one overall seed in the NBA and lose in the first round in 5 games when having a 10-point lead in the last 2 games and say that's not a failure. This isn't a team that has to learn how to win. Now, if this is OKC and you're the 8th seed coming off of a play-in game and you lose in the first round, that's a victory. That's not a failure. You growing. But as the Bucks, nah, it's a failure, bro. Come on, man. Come on. Let's be honest to the kids, man.
I tend to agree, but Jay, I know you want to chime in. Your thoughts?
Yeah, that's some bullshit. I really think that's some herb shit because you making people feel like you're not taking accountability for it at all. Because at the end of the day, bro, you're the number 1 seed. You're not reigning, but you were an MVP of this league. You won a championship before. So the only goal for you is a championship. It's not to make the playoffs or to get through the first round. That is like a given for you. You guys do that on the regular. So the fact that your exit was in the first round and in 5 games, yeah, that's some herb shit to say. He didn't. He didn't take that one on the chin. You got to take the L's just like you take the W's.
All right. Well, fair enough. But it looks like old Hank once again has to be the voice of reason on this podcast. But I just think it's I do agree in the sense that the ultimate goal for every team every year is to win a championship. That's why we play the game, to achieve success at the highest level, and that's to win a championship. But I don't look at guys' careers like Steve Nash, Charles Barkley, Patrick Ewing. I don't look at any of those guys and the fact that they didn't win a championship. Nothing about them to me says failure. And the other thing, this important part of what Giannis said, and I almost feel like he said the quiet part out loud, which is what you guys are disagreeing with. And he talked about the journey and that there are stepping stones to a champion. And you guys, I imagine, can both attest to this very well, is that you learn so much more from losing and failure than you do from winning. And Giannis, mind you, he is a champion. I guarantee you he's learning a lot more about himself. He's had to mentally go to places in the past 72 hours that he probably hasn't in the past because of how this season ended and how it unfolded and the ensuing aftermath of this noise and chaos. But to me, I thought Giannis absolutely nailed it with that press conference. And yes, some of it was sort of like, come on, bro. Like, yeah, it was a failure. Y'all were the 1 seed and you blew it. So I get that part of it. But to me, the important part of it was more that he hit the nail on the head about this being part of the journey. I thought that was very poetic to not just his career and his story and his path to the NBA, but how sports are supposed to work. You don't always win, and that's a fact. So that's my stance on it.
Hank, I'm glad you tried to be the voice of reason. I'm glad you did. But you know that I was a broadcast journalism major in college, right? Mm-hmm. And the important part about doing broadcast journalism is understanding the actual question. The reporter didn't say, Giannis, are you a failure?
Right.
The reporter said, it's this season. So we have to speak about this season. For Giannis to take his question and turn it into a narrative about him in totality as his career is disingenuous, which your answer tried to defend, saying Giannis wasn't a failure. He never asked him. He said, Giannis, are you a failure? No. He said particularly, is this season a failure? So let's keep it about this season. You failed, my guy. Number 1 overall seed, MVP candidate. And if I'm being honest, if anybody's going to be the MVP, right, and it's not going to be Jokic, to me, it's not even going to be Joel Embiid. It's going to be Giannis. If you look at their stats, and he has the number 1 overall seed, I would go with Giannis. So you have the MVP, the number 1 overall seed, and the lead in the last 2 games, and you lost. That's a failure. On top of that, you had a chance to close out Game 5 if what's his name don't miss a free throw.
Right.
Like, come on. It's very clear as day that he was triggered by the question because he feels like he failed.
He remembered it from the year before.
You see what I'm saying? He was triggered. And you being triggered by a question doesn't mean that the question is wrong. It means that that's actually the right question. I've learned that as a broadcaster. People hate to answer the questions that people want to hear. So when you have someone, you ask them questions and they get triggered, you're probably asking the right questions. So, Hank, sorry.
So D, you think that was You think that was frustration coming out of Giannis?
Absolutely. First of all, let's be honest. Giannis is one of the most fiercest competitors in the NBA. Like, he does not like to lose, just like everybody else. And the last thing you want is an obvious question. So you have to turn the obvious question into something bigger than what it is. Because yes, it's a failure. We lost in the first round. Why would you even ask me that? That's what athletes think. But journalists have to do their job. And journalists want to know, like, because people want to know, like, dude, y'all was supposed to at least go to the finals.
Right.
Like, at least get to the finals. And this is why I also think it's disingenuous. We discredit LeBron's greatness for his losses in the finals.
Mm-hmm.
But now people want to say they applaud Giannis for the journey and losing in the first round. So what you're telling me, the same people that will discredit LeBron for losing in the final 6 times will say it's okay for Giannis to lose in the first round, but then in the same breath say Giannis is the best player on the planet. Make it make sense. If y'all going to have that argument, right, and the standard is this is the standard for LeBron, that if you get to the finals, you got to win. But the standard for Giannis is if you get to the first round and you lose as part of the process, man, get the fuck out of here.
Mm-hmm.
That's not a standard. That's not fair. That's not fair at all.
Maybe he didn't hear Michael Jordan, because Michael Jordan definitely said that he fucking failed. I heard it out of his mouth.
Yes.
He said, I failed. When I didn't do this, I failed.
Yeah.
Period.
Yeah.
When I did this, I was successful.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's why to many people, Michael Jordan is the ultimate GOAT. I mean, that's another conversation for a different day. But Kobe too. Kobe, I lost, I failed. Shaq said it on TNT, man. Every time I lost, I failed. He said I was the best player in the league at that time, and I didn't win the championship. I failed. I kind of like that. I like that. Now, do you tell kids to have that same mentality growing up? Absolutely not. Like, you're 11, 12 years old. You have to learn how to win. But if you're a professional athlete getting paid 9 figures to win championships, and you have an opportunity to and you don't, then you fail. And that's okay. That don't mean that you can't come back and win next year.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, my favorite player is Steph Curry. Steph Curry can tell you when they lost to the Memphis Grizzlies, they failed in the play-in. And what did he say in that press conference?
You don't want to see us.
You don't want to see us next year. And what happened?
You don't want to see us next year.
And what happened? You see what I'm saying? Like,
Trip time.
Yeah. Yep, that's a fact. But you did bring up an important point that I kind of want to transition to here, and that's that Giannis very well could have been the MVP. Now, I want to transition into this MVP conversation because, one, I love that it's actually been like an interesting talking point this year, whereas in the past 2 years, we knew it was going to be Jokic. Like, there was not really much of a debate. It was like very clearly always going to be Jokic. Now, I trust both of you very much to hold me accountable here. If you think what I'm about to say is completely out of touch, completely out of pocket, or even offensive, but I just want to get this off my chest. I truly think if Kendrick Perkins didn't go on air and cry about Jokic winning another MVP, we'd be talking about Jokic winning his 3rd straight MVP right now instead of Embiid being the overwhelming favorite. According to BetMGM, mind you, he is a -600 favorite. So he's more than likely going to win it, barring an absolute, change of opinion, which we haven't really seen before like that. But I'm going to explain why. So I'm not just like a guy complaining about Kendrick Perkins, but there's many different angles, it seems nowadays, where we look at the MVP argument, right? So you have certain people who look at it through stats. Like, they view it as like an award that's based around stats. If you compare Jokic and Embiid, mind you, Embiid, the current favorite, Embiid has played fewer games, averages fewer rebounds, fewer assists, shoots a worse clip from the field, worse from three-pointer, and fewer steals per game, right? So if it's a stats argument, it's still Jokic. If your argument is about winning, well, Jokic has taken the Nuggets to heights they've never been to. They've never finished first in the West. This year they did it. I'll acknowledge Embiid's team has one more win, but again, number 1 in the West, that's heights this Denver team has never been to. So there's the winning argument. Jokic, to me, very well could win that. If your argument is value to your specific team, well, the Nuggets are 5-8 without Jokic. That's a losing record. The Sixers are 11-5 without Embiid. That is a winning record. So, and lastly, if you're an eye test guy and you want to go based off that, I don't know. I mean, maybe you can disagree with me here, but I don't know how you can watch both of these guys play and tell me Jokic doesn't affect the game in more ways than Joel Embiid. Not to mention he's forget a better passer. He's one of the best passers I've seen in the history of the game. And I would go as far to say the only thing on the offensive end that Joel Embiid does better than Jokic is jump. He's a better dunker. Other than that, I don't. So my point is, someone tell me the justification for Embiid winning MVP, because to me, he shouldn't even be considered over Giannis.
So
I took Giannis out because I know it's a regular season thing, but fuck, get out of here. Go ahead, dude.
My biggest thing here is one thing you never pointed out, and people never bring this out, is defense. Like, how come we are not going to talk about how much of a liability Jokic is on defense? And if we're going to be honest, right, I would have went with Giannis even over Embiid, mainly because when you're the number 1 overall seed in the NBA and you have more points, or well, not more points, but more rebounds, close to an assist, you know, Giannis is a defensive menace, but you're the number 1 overall seed, you're more valuable. You know, you're more valuable to your team. I think Jokic cannot be discredited for like the first center to average close to a triple-double. Like, I think he averaged 9.8 assists a game, which is 0.2 away from being a triple-double, which is freaking insane. But we can't discredit the defensive side of the ball. And if you watch them play basketball, Jokic is like a cone on defense. Mm-hmm. Like he's just standing around. Yeah, he's just standing around. Embiid getting blocks, getting steals, defecting in the paint. If I'm talking about who's more valuable, I would go with Giannis or Embiid just because of the defensive end as well. Now, I will agree with you. If you're going based on stats and efficiency and all of those things you discussed, which is in the past has been what we go by, Jokic overwhelmingly deserves his 3rd MVP. Number 1 overall in the West. You know what I'm saying? So I think that the biggest argument that people are saying is, what is the criteria? Because it seems to change every year. And we're seeing right now that the media can sway the criteria, because once Kendrick Perkins started crying, that's when people started saying, oh, it's not fair. But I also think, like, stats has become a little bit inflated. Y'all can tell me. Y'all are more basketball guys than I am, right? And we're watching all these records go down because the game has changed, right? The game is played at a faster pace. They shoot more threes. When you shoot more threes, there's more longer rebounds. There's so many things that go into the fact that it seems like every year somebody's averaging a triple-double. Mm-hmm. Like, before, it was something that never happened. It never happened. Oscar Robertson did it one time, and then freaking Russell Westbrook did it 4 times in a row. Right. You know what I'm saying? And all those times he did it, he didn't win MVP. Yeah. So we can't just say now because Jokic had done it, he gets an MVP. I just think that the whole stats thing is a little bit different because of the way the game has changed. But if I'm going who deserves it, you got to affect the game on offense and defense. So
yeah, I'm definitely going with Joel Embiid, the over fucking Joker. Completely, Hank. I don't know what you're thinking about, but Joel Embiid affects the game on both sides, not just one. I get it. Jokic could bring it up, get bums points. He could definitely rebound. He could definitely score the ball, got the greatest footwork in the game. Guess what? When he got a guard, they giving him a 40-piece.
That's fact.
Okay?
That's fact.
Period. Giannis is giving Joker a 40-piece. Mm-hmm. Joel Embiid is giving Joker a 40-piece. Mm-hmm. And they get more physical because they playing against him. You understand? They get up for those games because it's personal now. Because they say you better than me.
Right. So that's the other issue I have with it, which I think hurts your argument. You're supposed to get up more, right, when it's against that guy. What happened when they were supposed to play each other at the end of the season?
He was hurting. Relax. I know what you're talking about.
He ducked him. He ducked him.
Didn't they play this season?
Nah. He was hurting.
The first time they played.
Yeah, the first time they played. What happened the first time, though?
I couldn't tell you. I don't know.
Yeah, he got a 40-piece. That's why he don't remember.
He did.
That's why he don't remember.
Got a 40-piece.
Exactly.
Giannis put 40 on his head, and I think they smoked him, too.
Joel Embiid, too. Don't forget.
And then ducked him the second time.
But
he was hurt.
But let's be honest. Right? This reminds me of the Steve Nash-Kobe argument.
Sure.
Remember, Steve Nash was almost averaging a triple-double and all this other stuff, but Kobe was getting stuff done on both ends of the court, and they ended up giving it to Steve Nash. So my thing is, if that's the thing, if y'all only going to go by stats and offensive efficiency, then Joker should win just based on history. But I don't know if they're trying to change it now because even people were complaining then, like, how does Kobe not win that year? He averaged like 35 and he was like a finalist for like defensive MVP. Like, it was crazy. It was crazy.
Mm-hmm. So last thing I'll add here about the MVP discussion before we move on to another topic. My order of MVPs, and you tell me if I'm crazy for the third one, but my order would have been Jokic, Giannis, Jalen Brunson. If we're having a real conversation about how a guy changes his team and added a level of value that hasn't been there in years, Jalen Brunson did that to the Knicks, and a position that has been a turnstile for the Knicks for the past 20 years. Jalen Brunson came in there and in year one got them a playoff series, got them home court in the second playoff series, and became the best ISO guard in the entire NBA.
Hank, if you don't like Joel Embiid, just say it, bro.
I know Joel Embiid.
Just say it, bro. The fact that you don't got Joel Embiid on that list is blasphemous, bro.
I just think, like,
dude is the point. He's the scoring champ, like, and averages a double and is a beast on defense. Are you kidding me, Hank? Like, what does Brunson do on defense?
He's like Jokic. He's a bit of a traffic cone.
So why are we even talking about this? Why are we even talking about this? Like, Joel Embiid gets it done on both sides and is the scoring champ. And you're going to put Brunson over him? Stop.
Never.
I'm not saying Brunson's a better player, but I'm saying because clearly MVP isn't about better player these days.
Most valuable player to their team. Joel Embiid.
Yo, hey, you are killing me right. I don't want to have this debate. I feel like if I'm in this debate with why Joel Embiid is over Brunson, I'm gonna look like an idiot. Like, I'm
not saying that. I'm not saying I think Joel is a better player, but my argument about MVP these days, it's not about best player. It's about best story, most outstanding performance.
No, not at all. It's not about best story. It's not
Fuck
about
the story. Jimmy Butler got the best story in the history of stories.
I was about to say that.
13 years old, kicked out his crib. Yeah. Went JUCO, still made it to the league.
Yeah. Listen,
it's 56 points on Giannis.
It's tough being the voice of reason on the podcast, but we'll switch topics here because there's
I'm the voice of reason on this podcast.
Yo.
Last thing before we get out of here. Your thoughts on Draymond Green's new role coming off the bench? To me, he's thriving in it. I still prefer him in the starting lineup, but what do you think of Steve Kerr's decision to have him come off the bench?
Wow, that's a tough one. That's a great question, actually. There's no hiding the fact that me and Draymond are like friends. That's my boy. Like, I love him. He's a good dude. I feel like it's gonna be from series to series, right? Jordan Poole right now is playing like he plays for the Sacramento Kings, right? Like, he's killing us, right? And I feel like Draymond coming off the bench infuses something with that second unit that allows us to maintain. Because you got to remember this, when Steph is out of the game is when the Warriors struggle the most. So if you get a chance to take Steph out of the game, but you can infuse Draymond, right? It's all about matchups. And Draymond is a court general. People always go, oh, he's a triple single, da-da-da-da-da. When Draymond needed to score buckets, he had 21, 7, and 4, and 3 steals. Mm-hmm. So let's not act like Draymond can't score the basketball. Yeah. He can score the basketball. He just chooses to be smart and say, if I can get a 3 instead of a 2, I'm going to the basket and I'm going to dish it to 2 of the best shooters of all time. And then when Jordan Poole is hot. And then when you got DiVincenzo, who's been shooting the clip at 40%, and also GP3, why is he shooting the ball? But now you put him in that second unit, and he can get some buckets. I think it's smart for this series. But going into the next series, and we got to play that Lakers squad, and we need some size and physicality inside, Draymond ass better be starting. Mm-hmm. Or I'm flying to Golden State, and me and Kirk going to have some fisticuffs. Hey.
I got a question for you. D. So, if in fact the Golden State Warriors make it through, and they beat the Sacramento Kings, and they're up next, and they're playing the Lakers, right? if it's a perfect world because you're a Golden State fan and they win another championship and Steph now has 5 rings, where do you rank him amongst the greatest of the great, the GOAT conversation? Because you look at LeBron and you say he's the GOAT all the time. Meanwhile, they got the same amount of rings, so I'm just over here looking real funny.
Wow, that's actually a great question, Jay. If we're Steph's impact on the game is ridiculous. He changed the basketball on every level. Now everybody is shooting threes, it's positionless. You got guys shooting threes just to be able to keep up with what the Warriors can do. That's number one. If he gets another back-to-back ring, second Finals MVP, 2 scoring titles, greatest shooter of all time, I would say, man, that's tough, because if LeBron is the greatest of this generation, he would have had to have beat LeBron in another playoff series. Man, I would have to say Steph is top 5. How can we not say Steph is top 5? Because I would put him up there past Tim Duncan as far as effects on the game. I'll put him past Kobe. Once again, it's going to be the whole thing with he don't play defense like Kobe played defense and Tim Duncan played defense, right? And if Kobe and Tim Duncan aren't in the top 5, how does Steph get in the top 5? But when you're the greatest shooter of all times, and I've made this, I've told this to people all the time, and y'all can tell me because y'all are basketball guys. Scoring the basketball is the most important part of basketball, and I'll explain to you why. If you have 2 teams, you can get steals, you can get blocks, you can play defense, but nobody will win the game unless somebody scores. So if you have blocks the whole game, well, this person had 14 blocks. This person has 7 steals, but the score is still 0-0. The person who scores that 2 points is probably the most important part of the game because they are the ones who decide who wins. The fact that he can score such an amazing clip with crazy efficiency, I would definitely put Steph top 5 if he wins this 5th ring.
Well, you passed Tim Duncan and you passed Kobe. Keep going. So he's top 3.
No, he can't be top 3. Because you got Michael Jordan, you have Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. He has not passed LeBron James yet. LeBron has more MVPs, more Finals MVPs. LeBron James' impact on what he's done in the league over 20 years. Steph would have to play a lot longer because just longevity. Get more points. Accrue more assists, more rebounds, just to be able to be in that conversation. Like, I'm not going to discredit LeBron like that. Steph won some of them Finals because he had a better team. That's just what it's, and his style of play is differently. But I wouldn't put him past LeBron. But I would put him up there right next to Magic. Like, let's not discredit Magic's ability to affect the game. Multiple. I think he has 5 MVPs, 2 Finals MVPs, I believe. If I'm wrong, please correct me. But he also got 5 rings, been to the Finals 9 times out of 11 years. You know what I'm saying? And won a Finals MVP as a rookie. You can't discredit what Magic Johnson has done in the NBA either. So I wouldn't put Steph over Magic Johnson yet, even with 5 rings. Well, no, yeah, I would. Man, it's tough. Oh my gosh. Oh my God.
I have a question. Last one before we let you get out of here, but I'll revert back to my good friend Kendrick Perkins, who came out and claimed that the Warriors dynasty would be over after this if they went out in the first round, and that this would be their last dance. Do you think that's a load of bullshit, or do you think there's actually some truth to that?
You quote a lot of Kendrick Perkins.
Sorry.
But in 2020, I believe, when Clay tore his ACL, you can go back and you can hear Kendrick Perkins say, the Warriors run is over.
Mm-hmm.
Then he said it again when we got knocked out by Memphis in the playing game. This Warriors team is done. Then midway through the run last year, the Warriors is back. The Warriors, it's like, bro, sometimes I just think Kendrick just says whatever he thinks is going to get clickbait. There's no rhyme or reason behind it, so I won't ever quote Kendrick Perkins. I think he goes with whatever the flow is of the moment. But as long as those 3 guys are on that basketball team, and you got Clay, Draymond, and Steph, they're always going to have an opportunity to win a championship because Looney is playing out of his mind and what we need from him to do, get rebounds and get blocks, affect the game in the paint. When you got players like GP2, DiVincenzo who can shoot the rock the way they can, Wiggins being back, and I'm going to say this right now. We win Game 7 and Wiggins get another series under his belt, watch out for the Warriors.
Yeah.
Watch out, because Wiggins is still trying to find his way back into the game. But I don't think this dynasty is over in any means unless Draymond decides that he wants to go somewhere else. You know, I mean, once you break up that trio, then it's a little tough because Draymond has so much that he brings. The same way Clay has so much he brings. But that trio staying together, I'm rocking with the Warriors.
Do you think Draymond leaves? It looks like you know something that we don't know.
No, I don't. To be honest, I don't, because me and Draymond don't talk about contract stuff. We don't talk about team stuff. Like, we really talk about podcast stuff. That's how we started to build, you know, because and shout out to Draymond. Now he's a Webby Award-winning podcaster.
Yeah, he's amazing.
That has podcast. You know what I'm saying? We don't talk about the basketball much. You know, when you get around guys that are your friends, like Jay, he's in my house right now, but Jay and I don't sit down and talk about TV stuff. You know, we talk about the kids. We talk about how he's helping my kids become freaking savages. We talk about our wives. We talk about how we can build as men. So me and Draymond don't talk about that. But when I look at the landscape of the team, Draymond deserves to be paid.
Yeah.
And if the Warriors are not going to pay him what he's worth, he's already won 4 rings. If I'm going to continue to play at the height of I want to play, I have to decide what's more important: winning another championship or getting my money. And that's up to Draymond. We don't have that discussion for me to know. If it was me, Devale, I'm staying with the Warriors. I'm going to try to win 2 more rings, create a greater dynasty, because I know the money's going to come anyway. I'll get it in endorsement deals. I'll get it in other ways. But I also understand you have to get paid what your value is. If they're going to try to lowball me, then I'm out of here.
Yeah.
I'm going right over to LA, and it's going to be me, Bron, Kyrie probably going to come with us. Then we're going to run through the league for another 3 years, and then the Warriors is going to look stupid. That's what I'm thinking if I'm Draymond.
No. All right, I lied. I actually have one more question. So this is different topic. Different topic.
I'm not in a rush. By the way, too. So
amazing. Okay, cool. Hopefully you could talk about this one for a while too, because I've long said that Jason has a way of building not just basketball players, but turning young athletes into mature professionals. And obviously your kids are young. They're not at like the age where they'd be professionals yet, but I've seen kids walk into the gym who can't walk and chew gum at the same time. And then 6 months later, they're leading their team to NCAA tournament victories.
Yes.
What have you, and that's not an exaggeration, that's a real thing. So what have you seen in the development from your kids since they started training with Jason?
The biggest thing is confidence and understanding of themselves, right? Because like Jason will tell you, I used to run the similar program to Jason when I was back in Brooklyn, Prototype Sports Performance, and it was for football. And a lot of those kids who walk in and, like you said, can't chew gum and walk at the same time, it's a lack of self-awareness and a lack of confidence. Their whole life, they've had someone telling them, you ain't shit, you ain't shit, you ain't shit. Whether it's a dad, whether it's a coach. And then a lot of these kids start to believe it, right? I watched Jay tell my sons, right? Everybody who's sensitive, be sensitive. Jackson, I don't give a fuck about the misses. Shoot the basketball. And I watched my son's eyes tear up like, you don't care how much times I miss? And he's like, no, I don't care how many times you miss. It's the process of learning how to make a shot, which means you have to set your feet properly and you have to have your hands in the proper placement, and you're going to miss in order to figure out how to make it. I watched my son go from being an okay shooter to now, if the ball hits the rim, he gets frustrated. Jason just put up on his thing yesterday, my son shooting the basketball, and there was like 5 clips in a row that it didn't even touch the rim. And it's about confidence. It's about making a child feel as if I can do anything. And even when I fail, my coach, Jay, is still going to love me and still cheer for me. I'm in there in the gym watching him shoot, right? And Jackson is missing. Boom, boom. He's getting frustrated. And Jay's like, let's go, let's go, let's go. And then he's looking around like he's not screaming at me. He's not yelling. And then they start falling 7 in a row, 8 in a row, and then my son's getting excited. And his excitement with failing makes him want to go to the gym and keep practicing. And this is one thing I learned from football. It takes 1,000 movements of muscle memory. It takes 1,000 muscle movements to become muscle memory, which means you have to do the same thing over and over and over and over again to become a master at your craft. Most kids struggle with becoming a master at their craft because they hate failing. Jason taught my kids how to enjoy failing because they only have to get better, 1% every day.
That's a fact.
So now Jackson goes to the gym, and before he used to be afraid of the shooting gun because he was shooting like 46% and he'd be pissed off. He's been going to the gym every day. I got to get 200 makes. And now he shoots at 56% and gets excited. It's like, Daddy, next time I go back, I'm going to go for 57%. And if he don't get 57%, he's like, I got to go back the next day to get my – and it's like that excitement of working on your craft is something Jason instilled with them. And he instilled in it with them with this rare ability to scream and give them adversity while they're doing it, so that when the games come around, he'd be like, these games be fun compared to what I got to go through at the gym. Jay be screaming at me, pushing me with the basketball, and it just gets him excited. So what Jay is doing with these young men and young women is just amazing. It's kudos to him. I'm not just saying that because he's here, but there's a reason why I fly his ass out to Atlanta every other weekend, because my kids need that. And they need that from somebody other than me. I was that to other people's kids. I have a young man that was drafted by the Jets in the 5th round, Israel Abanikanda. Both his parents in his life. His mom is a great mom. His dad is a great dad. But his dad brought him to me because they needed a different voice. You know, sometimes you don't want to hear your dad. He can get in the car with me after being with Jay and be like, I hate Jay and all this other stuff. And I'm like, yeah, I hate Jay too. Because we have that bond as father and son, and he can escape from that for a minute. And they go back and they work on it. So kudos to Jay, man. You're doing a great thing, son. Like I
appreciate you, man. I appreciate that. With that being said, it's all about relationships for me. Like, to me, every situation and every child and every athlete can also teach you something. I be in the car with Jax, and we talking about, like Devale said, we don't talk about balls all the time. It's about debate. It's about, he got coding stuff. He's teaching me about softwares and apps, and I have no clue about this shit. Not even a little piece of nothing.
Yeah.
And he's just feeding me information, and now I'm learning, and I'm showing him that he's teaching me some shit, and we bounce off each other, and it's just real organic. And he just understands that every day, everybody can get better at something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And I just feel it that way. But shifting gears, I got one question for him, because I know he's not a betting man, and everybody that's tuned in to Friends of Friends wants to hear the outcome of today's game in about an hour. Warriors versus Kings, Game 7. Please walk us through that.
I got Warriors in 7. I feel like this whole Warriors can't win on the road thing was just a narrative created in the regular season. I've watched these men play games, for the past 8 years. Like, they know how to win. I feel like all of the pressure at this point is on the Kings. You got home court advantage back. You got these young guys who've never been in this type of atmosphere. And one thing I know about Clay and Steph and Dre, they turn it on when it matters the most. After they lost Game 7 in the finals to the Cavs, right? I remember speaking to Dre, and this is one thing we did speak about. And I was like, yo, what was that like? He was like, it sucked. It sucked. He said, we were spent because we were trying so hard to win the 73 games in the regular season. And then we got to the finals, and they had smoked them the first 3 games. And at that point, you feel like people are just going to roll over. And they went up against beasts. Like, he don't take nothing away from Kyrie and LeBron. They were just beasts. They never rolled over. And throughout the regular season, teams had rolled over, and they ended up losing. At that point, they had never said they were going to take any game for granted again. This is going to be a test to show them, like, yo, we are still who we say we are. I got Steph going for 35. I got Clay going for 28. I got Draymond giving us a smooth 15. I hope Steve Kerr keeps Jordan Poole ass on the bench. And I see Looney giving us 20 rebounds. That's what I see.
Major ticket for y'all.
That's what I see.
That's a good one. All right, last thing before I get out of here. I just thought that moment between you guys there was beautiful, honestly. And it's important what you were saying. Like, that's one of the things I valued most in how Jason trains his kids. Like, keep shooting. I don't care how many miss. Just focus on doing it the right way. Because all it makes me think about is what Giannis was saying about how there's stepping stones and you learn from failure. And it sounds like after 39 minutes of recording, the voice of reason has finally gotten through.
No, absolutely not. My son is 12. My son is 12. He is not a Finals MVP. And if Jackson goes out in the first round after being a Finals MVP and plays terrible, I'm gonna be like, bro, you failed. Like, all that shit they taught you since you was 12 and you went out and did that in the first round, man, you're not eating tonight. You get no food tonight. And he probably gonna be like, Dad, I'm rich. I eat my own food. I'm coming out plate because you let them fools take the food off your plate in the first round.
That's a fact.
I love it.
Devale Ellis, man, be a friend of a friend.
Yo, I appreciate y'all, man. Y'all too. I love what y'all doing, man. This is amazing. I had a good time. It's been a minute. We've been trying to get on. When football season starts, Hank, I want to come back on. Let's get this.
Bring it on. I'm ready for you. Thank you, guys.
Peace.